Evening, Miles of CMF Talk. Good to see how you doing. How you been? How's things? Hi, Miles. Pablo. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Mike. Good day, Miles of CMF. Good to see you. Mike. How you doing? How you been? Mickey. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Shelly. Morning, Miles of CMF. Good to see you. Shelly. How you doing? Morning. How you been? How's things? See who's tuning in on. Good evening, sir. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Autistic. Evening, Miles. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Okay, while everyone tunes in, all good, let's go, Mike. While everyone tunes in one by one, let's go talk about on tonight's live. On episode essentially 312 of the CMF Live. Blessing, my brother. Let's go, Mac. Good to see you as well, Mac. How you doing? How you been? On tonight's episode of the CMF Live, we're going to be talking about essentially Bitcoin market dominance. Bitcoin is reaching new heights, so we're going to talk about it on tonight's live. We're also going to talk about how much Bitcoin has climbed so far. We're also going to be talking about the Texas bill that's been passed for essentially Bitcoin and a crypto. We're also going to be going through news regarding Hong Kong on tonight's live. Now, we know that the United States essentially is passing some sort of legislation for stablecoins regarding the Genius Act. It seems that it's trying to beat them to that race. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding essentially large US corporations going across to essentially borrow money against their own assets rather than borrowing inside the United States. I'll reveal what the reason is for that. We're going to be talking about the Fed on tonight's live as well. Apparently the Fed is going to be coming out with some sort of information very soon. We're going to be talking about live regarding Switzerland. A Swiss ginormous company has decided to enter the blockchain space, and essentially not just enter it because they did a while ago, but they want to expand into it, is what we're going to talk about tonight's live. We're going to be going through news regarding crypto.com also on tonight's live, some sort of advantage acquisitions in Europe. We're going to go through news regarding Russia on tonight's live as well, regarding legalizing cryptocurrencies for one specific reason, which I'll reveal once we get to that news. We're going to be talking about banks on tonight's live and why banks, were against essentially crypto. And what was the reason? And are still some banks, they don't like stablecoins coming into power. We're going to go through news regarding also on tonight's live regarding sovereign wealth funds who are increasing essentially their Bitcoin holdings through essentially ETF market spaces or even going for MSTR stocks. We're going to go for York news on tonight's live. The Mayor Adam talked about yesterday doing a blockchain event for the first time of a crypto event he did yesterday. We talked about today. We have some more information regarding Mayor Adams. His plans are for a crypto New York. He did say he wants to make New York the hub of blockchain technology. We're going to go for news regarding also on tonight's live regarding CBDCs because we have some updates on that matter from one particular country, and we're going to be talking on tonight's live regarding a Ripple event that's coming up very, very soon. So, a mixture of news to go through on tonight's live regarding essentially data points to go through where the markets essentially are at right now. What's next for the market space? What about the banks? What about CBDCs? And also, what about the events that are coming up for the crypto space? Now, before we go through any of those news topics, just want to say to everyone watching now, welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF Stars family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. London time, as always, where I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Pretty much everything you need to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital sector. We also do live Q&As on this live as well, which means if you ever have any questions, put it down in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to help you out. This is episode 312 of the CMF Live, and this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. So, welcome to the CMF Live. If you're a CMF, if you're regular, let's go CMF. By the way, thank you so much to everyone who has liked this live, who's retweeted this live on X, and also put a comment outside the live as well. And thanks so much on YouTube, essentially, who's also put a comment outside the live and like the live if you watch us on YouTube. If you haven't done that, CMF members, just seconds to like the live, retweet it. If you watch us on X, if you watch us on YouTube, like the live and put a comment outside the live as well. If you haven't done seconds. Now, before we go through the first news, which is regarding the Bitcoin dominance, which is happening inside the market space right now. And essentially, before we go for that news, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see where we're at. We were at here. Good evening, Miles of CMF. Good to see you as well, Callie. How you doing? How you been? Scott says hello, Miles of CMF. Good to see you, Scott. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles. Davey, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hello, Miles, my CMF members. I hope that you're there. Let's go, Scott. Funky Brother says, good evening, brother Miles. Good to see you as well, Funky Brother. How you doing? Good evening, CMF. Miles, how you feeling now? I'm feeling better than I Essential Regional, a lot better. Hi, Miles and family. Golden, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hello, Miles of CMF. Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and family. Ian, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? So, first topic of live is obviously the biggest one in the room. The elephant in the room is Bitcoin reaching new heights, is what we're going to talk about first. And what could possibly be the next steps and how far essentially is it going to be climbing, let's just say. So, Bitcoin's market dominance reaches a 4-year high, impacting on altcoins. Bitcoin's dominance has essentially reached 64.25% after institutional investors increased their inflows Bitcoin-based ETFs, resulting essentially in a 67% decline in altcoins, essentially from its peak. The increase in Bitcoin's market share underscores its perceived strengths, some sort of a safe haven during uncertain times, leading to noticeable shifts in financial flows and diminishing essentially other sectors. Investors' interest has been essentially driving the force behind Bitcoin's increased market share, particularly essentially through heightened investments, essentially, i.e. Bitcoin, essentially ETFs. This trend essentially indicates a preference for Bitcoin due to its perceived stability and liquidity. Key figures in the industry, essentially such as James Quinn from Binance, essentially highlighted Bitcoin's role as a defensive aimed at traditional market, essentially fluctuations. His own words, Bitcoin's dominance clearly shows that its strength as a essentially defensive asset when traditional assets experience turbulence, investors to look to alternative assets to diversify their portfolios, and Bitcoin with its widespread adoption established essentially track record has emerged as a haven on some sort within the crypto space. James said, essentially the director of community engagements at Binance Australia, New Zealand. Now, social media influencers have also recognized the shift in focus to Bitcoin, noting the increase in trading volumes of Bitcoin that's happening right now. Historical patterns show that Bitcoin tends to draw capital during periods of macroeconomic essential caution moments and often at the expense of risk, including altcoins and DeFi tokens. Past instances essentially saw similar capital rotations into Bitcoin, paralleling previous essentially cycles marked economic uncertainties. Analysts also suggest that Bitcoin's dominance typically aligns with shifts in terms of market sentiment, where investors' confidence weighs in high-risk investment, and the likely outcomes include continued essentially capital into Bitcoin, potential regulatory scrutiny also on inflows and technological adaptations in responses to shifting essentially shifting investor priorities. Historical trends point to Bitcoin's enduring appeal as a secure essentially investment option, especially during these times of economic volatility. The cryptocurrency also benefited from the aftermath of Donald Trump's essentially electoral victory, which has essentially expected to use a pro-crypto policies. We're going to talk about those pro-crypto policies that are happening also on tonight's live. The leading of crypto-connected entities like MicroStrategy and Coinbase essentially saw also their share prices alongside high, demonstrating the favorable impacts on broader essentially digital assets on the market space. Bitcoin's market capitalization reached $2.16 trillion, overtaking Amazon. As essentially discussed in this CoinDesk essential article, its value surge was notable, essentially supported by nearly $9 billion in US spot Bitcoin inflows, ETF inflows, as Amazon stock recorded a decline year to date. Bitcoin witnessed a 16.44% appreciation, setting a new industry precedent. Institutional participation through essentially products like iShares Bitcoin ETF is also driving much of Bitcoin's momentum, attracting the nearly $9 billion from investors, said Eric from Bloomberg ETF. Institutional participation drove much of Bitcoin's momentum through products like iShares Bitcoin ETF. The anticipation is happening, and this highlights the growing confidence in digital asset market spaces as mainstream financial instruments and financial market spaces connect themselves to the blockchain world. Analysts also says potential outcomes include increased liquidity, further institutional adoption is on the way, and technological advancements are also on the way as well, with Bitcoin setting new historical highs. Sharp focus is happening on how regulatory landscapes are going to be coming in terms of technological innovation, shape the expanding crypto space is moving forward, and the current essentially trajectory may set benchmarks for the further growth, echoing previous cycles, and the expansion is essentially driven by regulatory and economic factors. So that is essentially all the information that essentially CoinDesk released today, and also some words here and there chimed in by Eric, and some essentially facts thrown in there regarding how Bitcoin is overtaking essentially Amazon in terms of share prices, and how Bitcoin was a much more better asset to go for than Amazon shares in that time period. They are essentially saying that institutional wave is pretty much on the way, and there is a tremendous amount of institutions right now, Bitcoin ETFs, and also that tremendous amount of regulations that are coming through, starting with the Stablecoin Act, that is going to help the market space lift up from where it's standing right now. This is bringing essentially more attention to the blockchain space, more also for altcoins. A lot of people are suggesting that money is going to be completely emptied out of altcoins, go straight into Bitcoin, and essentially Bitcoin reaching those new highs. Money doesn't need to exit from altcoins. New money can enter into essentially Bitcoin ETFs from investors hold any cryptocurrencies, is most of what's happening right now. It isn't that a lot of money from essentially altcoins to go into Bitcoin ETFs. It's actually new money that's entering into Bitcoin ETFs from traditional investors that aren't involved in the crypto space, but just adding either more to their Bitcoin ETFs, or they're entering for the first time into Bitcoin ETFs, is what really is happening. Now, what we're also going to be talking about tonight in terms of regulations is Texas. But before we talk about Texas, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live from London, as always. If you do have any questions or comments to make, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So, before we go through the Texas news that's happening in terms of regulations, there's a lot of regulation news we're going to go through on tonight's live. A lot of things are happening. It's all positive for the crypto space. But let's go inside the section first before we go through the next news. So, let's see where we're at. I can see Ian has just sent a £20 donation. Let's go CMF. Ian, thank you so much for a £20 donation straight towards CMF Hedge Fund. Absolutely amazing. Thanks so much for the £20 donation. Let's go, Ian. Let's see where we're at. Also, we were at here. Hi, Miles family. Golden Dragon. Good to see you as well. You've been. Hello, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well. Comment doing. Ian says, good evening, Miles and family. Good to see you, Ian. And Ian, once again, thank you for the £20 donation. Hello to my CMF on YouTube. Scott, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Funky Brother says, I heard SEC has delayed the spot ETF again. Yes, so regarding the ETF delays that are happening with the SEC, it is true. The SEC has delayed all of the ETFs for the time being. And regarding the XRP ETF, it's because the case is still ongoing. The case gets dropped. Well, the judge essentially rule on that drop and remove the injunction. Once that happens, there's no reason for an XRP ETF to be delayed ever again once that case is settled, which is going to be very, very soon. Evening, Pure, good to see you. So how you doing? How you been? It's also because it'll be very confusing to approve an XRP ETF while there's an ongoing case going on. I'm not saying they can't approve it. They can. If the SEC wanted to, they can essentially approve an XRP ETF. But it's just the confusion that's probably going to be starting while there's an ongoing case going on that needs to be settled. Even though they both have settled it in their own chambers, the case is still on the judges to say. But they can if they wanted to, but it makes more sense to just then bring out the ETFs. And also, once the case is dropped, there's no reason for them to delay an XRP ETF. As I said previously, the SEC has had the longest run and the longest look into the XRP ledger and Ripple itself. So there shouldn't be any, time wasting there when the case is dropped. They don't need more time to look into Ripple to approve an XRP ETF, because the XRP ledger is the longest we've ever had into any blockchain project. Now, well done for the support. Facts. Let's go, Ian. Hi, brother. Come on. How you been? Happy Pisces. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Funky brother. It's been a while since anyone up the hedge fund for CMF. It's true. Yeah. Let's go. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Scott, let's go. Miles, your voice keeps having a little glitch. Is my voice having a little glitch? That's interesting. Thank you about that, funky brother. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Free and forever. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Let the Bitcoin maxis have their fun. It's not going to last too long. That's what JP said. Curtis, JP Truth. Let's go. Adios, a little bit late on. I hope I haven't missed too much, mate. Still perfect timing. Don't worry. Good to see you. Good evening, Miles and CMF is what Honor says. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Happy Pisces says, evening, Miles. Is it possible for XLM to be swallowed up by Ripple Ledger? Ripple buys Circle and Stellar Software Incorporated if required. Is it possible for Ripple to swallow up XLM? I'll be honest, XRP and XRP should be working alongside each other. I don't think Ripple will swallow them up. If they wanted to, they could. I think they will. I think it's more in the sense of, they will work essentially, alongside each other is what I would have to say. Hi, Miles. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? But interesting question, Happy Pisces. Miles, how strong is TAI? I've been doing my research and it looks okay. Do you have opinion on TAI? TAI is Celeste, if I'm not mistaken. It's a decent project. I don't believe it's a scam project in any sort of a way. It's a decent project. It's legitimate. It's I wouldn't say it's a must-have project, but it's a project that, if you want to look into, add some or so on, it's completely your choice, completely your money, no financial risk at all. But in my opinion, it's a decent project and it's not a scam project in my opinion. But again, for me, it's always about the financial projects as core projects. Alongside it, if you want to go for TAI, your choice. But it seems like a decent project from essentially looked into in the past from it. And yeah, hello, Miles. Let's go CMF. It's great to be alive and to be a part of this space. Let's go, Peg. How you doing? Miles, I haven't heard a lot about XDC. Any words on this crypto? For the time being, no. But great project. Yes, glitch every 20 seconds. Okay. Now, this is, Q3 of this year is all going to be about regulations by the looks of it, which is where we want to stand. And Texas essentially is the first one to be passing some sort of regulations. So, Texas House approves a Bitcoin reserve bill and also some sort of a crypto stockpile. Texas has joined a trend of states essentially in the US stockpile Bitcoin, and today the Texas House of Representatives have approved the Senate Bill 21 and moved the bill to the governor, essentially Greg's desk, for a final decision. So Texas could become the first official American state to have some sort of a crypto stock. The bill was introduced by Senator Charles and led by the House Representative Giovanni. It also passed with a strong vote of 105 in favor and 23 against, showing essential support. If signed into law, the state essentially would be in charge of managing a crypto reserve that could include Bitcoin and other selected cryptocurrencies. So Texas is not just going to be, because I've seen the news that people are posting on social media, which it could be by mistake. Sometimes people leave out certain information when they publish news on X or on social media in general. And regarding this, Texas is not just passing a Bitcoin bill. Texas is passing a stockpile bill, which means they essentially be adding Bitcoin to their reserves and other selected cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin. The digital assets as a tool to boost Texas' financial strength. REP essentially called a forward-thinking measure that aims to treat assets as a real opportunity, not just essentially passing trend. He told House members Texas can take a leadership role in the evolving digital economy, and the bill would also set rules for which digital currencies would be included, only allowing those that have maintained a strong for the last 24 months. Although the bill essentially has passed the House, the process isn't over yet. The governor has 10 days to sign it into essentially law or let it become law without signing it. The legislation session ends June 2nd, giving lawmakers a very tight deadline to finalize the bill. If the governor chooses to veto the House strong votes, essentially the House strong still be enough to override it. So even if the governor of Texas rejects the idea of a crypto stockpile, the House can still veto his judgment as well. So by the looks of it, it's going to get passed, and Texas is about to become, in 10 days, the first American state essentially to be able to purchase cryptocurrencies. Not just Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. They said selected cryptocurrencies. Any cryptocurrency that's performed well in the past 24 months is on Texas's list to be purchased, added to their reserves. So Texas technically is about to become the first American state to own cryptocurrencies. However, not everyone is on board. Representatives Ron essentially Reynolds voted against the bill, saying it offers little oversight and could lead to risky investments. I thought it was probably volatile for us to really be doing it based on essentially taxpayers' expenses. Reynolds said in an interview, critics worry that the plan may benefit investors while exposing the public to unstable nature of cryptocurrencies. The bill also doesn't say exactly how much money will go into it, into the crypto fund. However, the language in the Senate's budget may open the door for funding very soon. Supporters like essentially Thatcher from the Texas Blockchain Council say the amount will be small and measurable. It will essentially be a negligible amount in the grand scheme of things for Texas. Thatcher said last week, essentially. Texas now follows the footsteps of New Hampshire, which became essentially the first state to set up a crypto reserve, but they still haven't purchased anything. However, Texas could be the first to actually put money into one. New Hampshire has greenlighted it, but they haven't purchased them. But Texas will actually be the first one that greenlights it as an American state and starts purchasing cryptocurrencies. So that's very different to what essentially New Hampshire has been doing so far. Now, similar proposals are being discussed in over 20 states, including Ohio and Arizona, with Bitcoin essentially hitting recently also $107,000 or $109,000 now. The timing of this bill is turning heads across the country. Texas is about to become the first American state to have a crypto reserve, not just a Bitcoin reserve, because I know people on social media right now, they do tend to leave certain information out, and it could be by mistake they're leaving certain information out. But the truth of the matter is Texas is about to be passing a crypto reserve bill, not just a Bitcoin reserve bill. It's in the law, and they're going to be adding selected cryptocurrencies alongside Bitcoin in their crypto rock power, cryptos that have done well past 24 months. Now, Hong Kong is what we're going to be talking about next, because as I'm deciding on a Genius Act, which is a stablecoin bill they're trying to pass right now, Hong Kong has taken things into their own hands and decided to pass a stablecoin act before the US. This is nice to see, because I like the competitive edge countries bring to the table. All these jurisdictions around the world bring to the table, because the faster they enter, the better it is for us, the more liquidity enters. So Hong Kong's Legislative Council has approved a new regulating stablecoins and setting the stage for the city to become a hub for digital asset developments and Web3 innovation. The legislation, which its final reading today, introduces a licensing regime for coin issuers and requires all to be fully backed by fiat currencies. Institutions will be able to apply licenses from the Hong Kong Monetary Authority by year end, according to lawmaker essentially Johnny. He also said, with this framework in place, we expect major players to begin applying soon, Johnny said on a post. He also added that Hong Kong is open to working with international firms looking to issue stablecoins in the city. A vocal advocate for blockchain policy said he's willing to help connect companies with regulators and local partners. And he said, I'm happy to assist with introductions and cooperation efforts. And also adding that the move comes as Hong Kong seeks to establish itself as a leader in Web3 space, offering clearer rules for crypto business, while mainland China continues to clamp down on the sector. The news also follows other regulatory updates, including rules on crypto staking services, and reflects the growing support for digital finance infrastructure, and stablecoins could play a very key role in modernizing payment systems, streamlining cross-border trade, and peer-to-peer transactions. He also floated the idea of allowing stablecoin holders to trust, while he believes that could improve essentially market stability and help these assets gain a much more wider adoption rate. Yield-bearing essentially stablecoins have been gaining traction. Recent data also shows that their circulation has jumped essentially to $11 billion, roughly 4.5% of the overall stablecoin market space, up from just $1.5 billion and 1% market share at the start of the year. The bill's passage could make Hong Kong first major jurisdictions in the world with comprehensive licensing frameworks for stablecoins at a time when global regulators are still playing catch-up. They're referring to the US. The US right now is still going a bit of a back and forth situation on that essentially Genius Coin Act bill that's about to just be passing essentially on its final stages. Hong Kong's SFC introduced a formal rules for cryptocurrency exchanges and funds offering staking services. The SFC also announced a new framework to provide clarity for digital asset platforms that wish to offer staking services. Crypto exchanges must now seek prior written approvals before essentially any sort of staking services and retain full custody of staked assets and ensure that users essentially are properly informed on all fees, lockup periods associated risk when it comes to cryptocurrencies. And exchanges will also be required to report their staking activities directly to the regulators so that the government of Hong Kong knows who is staking their cryptos on their exchanges. And funds with more than 10% exposure to digital assets will also fall under the new rules as kind of essentially participate in staking if it aligns with their investments and objectives. Through they must disclose relative risk, seek investor essentially consent when needed, and avoid leverage exposure. So while the US is going slightly back and forward on that Genius Act to be passing it through, Hong Kong decided to take matters on their own, and they just passed the stablecoin bill, which is incredible to see, honestly. When countries be competitive in terms of processing regulations for the crypto, it's brilliant to watch, because Hong Kong now, with this announcement they made today on their stablecoin bill and their staking bill and some other bills they passed today, that's going to make other countries around them, for example, Singapore or Vietnam, or essentially Thailand or Australia, or essentially China's starting to open up some of their doors. They're thinking about opening up their doors, but essentially UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, even the US, even the EU will look at essentially Hong Kong now and go, well, they've just passed the stablecoins. Why haven't we still? So I love this competitive edge that Hong Kong just brought to the table, because while some jurisdictions are going slightly back and forward on should we pass, should we not pass, should we not, should we not pass, Hong Kong just pulled the trigger and passed the stablecoin bill. Incredible. Now, large US corporations is what we're going to be talking about next. But before we talk about the large US corporations, what is their move right now? Let's go start the conversation first. As I said previously, this is live from London. As always, if you do have statements to make, put it down inside the comment section. I read everybody's comments one by one. I don't leave anybody out. Let's go start the comment section first, and then we go straight into the next news, which is quite an interesting one. Now, let's see where it's Scott. Scott says, Miles, do I still get to invest in your company? I'm an OG after 2 years. Update, please. Yes, of course, Scott. Why not? Of course, brother. Manny, good evening, Miles and CMF. Manny, good to see you. So how you doing? How you been? Michael, good evening, Miles. Good to see you. So Michael, how you doing? How you been? Let's go, Scott. Greetings, Miles. CMF, hope all is well. Ray, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? I'm an OG. I'm investing in Miles, not financial advice, just my choice. Let's go, Scott. Ray, let's go. Scott says ACH is in the financial sector. What is its status? It's true. ACH is financial sector. ACH has a lot of essential licensings. They have a lot of partnerships for on ramps and off ramps. It's all around. ACH is, to be fairly honest, all around great project. There are obviously projects above ACH in terms of the financial sector, like XLP, essentially XLM, XDC, and so on. But ACH is still ranking in that table. But those projects are ranking above it. Lone Star State, that's Texas. Let's go, Texas. Let's go, Ian. Scott says also, Miles, I have researched Layer AI. Do you know much about this crypto? Do you have any entertaining thoughts on? Haven't looked into Layer AI. I can take a look at it after the live show for you. Get back to you, Scott. No problem. Go Texas is what Peg says. Let's go. Ray says, God bless Texas. We do it different out here. Lone Star, the house and loving crypto. Let's go, Ray. Peg also says, that's right. Texas doesn't wait on anyone. We do it when we want. Scott says, will crypto investors play a major role in the midterm elections as they did in the major elections? Great question, Scott. Yes. So essentially the midterm elections are coming up in the US. Is crypto going to be playing a vital role in that sense? Yes. So the reason why previously we had a essentially sweep for Republicans was because companies like Coinbase and Ripple came together as being the biggest crypto donors for all the Republicans that had a clean in all angles. And they used their money to fund their campaigns in terms of advertisement and marketing, so on and so on, because you can't do direct investments into politicians, but you can invest into their branding and marketing team, is what Coinbase did alongside each other. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars doing that. Now, I have mentioned essentially a few months back that Ripple and Coinbase have got essentially bags ready for the midterms, essential elections. Ripple is still doing investments towards politicians for their midterm investments in terms of, their marketing and branding and campaigning and so on, so they can rack up more votes. And it's brilliant to see. So yes, crypto is still playing a very vital role for the midterm elections, and Ripple is still funding politicians to have clean sweeps, which is amazing to see as well. The more politicians Ripple has in its back pocket, the better it is. It's all about politics. Honestly, if you're trying to build a company that's going to change the world forever, you need politicians in your back pocket. It's just how the world operates. You have to have those politicians in your back pocket. And Ripple's doing a great job at it by funding all these Republicans. Great job. I said this a long time ago, if crypto wants to move along, they need to get some politicians in their back pockets. And we can obviously see that happening essentially with essentially Bitcoin. Max is also, funding into the lobbying movements that are happening also. Now, large US corporations is what we're going to talk about next. But yes, they are going to have a minute on that. BTC has just reached 109 USD. Thank you for the update on that price point. Does that mean we're going to have loads of stable coins around the world? A stable coin build, does that mean we're going to be having lots of stable coins around the world? Yes. But as I said, majority of stable coins will just become novelty items, because the ones that really matter are, the US dollar ones. Essentially, the euro will have one particular, the actual one, and the rest around the European stable coins will be novelty items. There'll be a few British pound stable coins as well. The majority will be novelty items. Only one of them will be heavily used. That's just how it is. It's how right now as well. We have multiple stable coins right now inside the market space. There's only a few that's being used. The rest is just novelty items for the time being. So same thing will play out. Yes. Miles, I have a question. Is facts. Let's go. M says, Miles, I have a question. Is XLM, XRP, and XDC Sharia on the Sharia law compliant? XRP is yes. Bitcoin also is, if I'm not mistaken. But here's the thing. So regarding the Sharia law subject, the Bank of Bahrain, the Central Bank of Bahrain, passed. There's a PDF, so it's factual information that also anybody could go check out from the Bank of Bahrain. It's public information, and you could go read it. But certain investments are not allowed in Middle Eastern countries. Some people might not know this. Some people might. I don't know what's happened. I have no idea what happened, but I'm back. Can everybody see me? Thumbs up if you can see me. Thumbs up if you can see me. Can everyone see me? You're back, Miles. I was just about to say you're still a bit glitchy, then we lost you. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but I'm guessing the glitch went away because it's not glitching anymore. Okay, it's glitching a little bit. Okay, but we're back. Let's go. Sorry, I turned off the wrong switch. But we're back. Okay, as I was saying before, I don't know what happened. Certain, essentially, Middle Eastern countries tend to not get involved in certain investments because it goes against their religion. Some people know this, some people don't know this, and it has to apply by the Sharia law, basically in the Middle East. So the Bank of Bahrain, the Central Bank of Bahrain, did a PDF documentation of what is compliant under their religion for investment purposes in the Middle East. And XRP actually has a green light as being under Sharia law. And if I'm not mistaken, Bitcoin does now too. I think, I'm not sure, but I know XRP has compliance on the Sharia law because the PDF documentation is there. It's public information, it's factual information from the Central Bank of Bahrain. If anybody wants to see the document, I can send it to you, or you can just go to the Bank of Bahrain's central website and download the document yourself. It's completely up to you. But yes, XRP has a green light, and the rest, I would have to look into it, but XRP has a green light, which means that XRP under Islamic laws in the Middle East can be purchased in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates. But that's how things work in the Middle East. They have to be under the religion for them to be purchasing it. Now, alt season, we're nearly there. Facts, we are. We're getting very close to alt season. Let's see where we're at. Opinion on the following basket: XRP, XLM, ADA, Algo, Doge, Shiba, Beam, and HOT. So, based on what you've just revealed to me regarding your basket, XRP good, XLM good, ADA good, Algo good, Doge good, sure. You know, I've always said, you know, when it comes to meme coins, they're very highly speculative assets, but I've always said there are three technically meme coins that I see no matter what they'll, you know, do well for themselves. I said Dogecoin is one of them because of Elon Musk. He's a very strong supporter of Dogecoin. As long as he supports Dogecoin, it will do well. I said Shiba will do well because of the massive community behind it, and also that investment they had in the UAE was quite a big one. And I said Luna will do quite well for itself. Same reason on Shiba because of the massive community behind it. So other than those three essentially meme coins, I don't see any meme coins doing well for themselves. And so based on that, I mean, XRP good, XLM good, ADA good, Algo good, Doge good, Shiba good, Beam good, great asset in the gaming sector, and HOT, why not? Now, we haven't talked about HOT in a while. This is still a good asset to look into. I still particularly hold HOT. I'll be very honest with you. Miles, please share that document. It would be interesting to read, especially since I am from America. Sure, Scott, why not? I'll send it to you. I've shared it inside a Telegram group before, but I don't know if it's still in the pinned messages. I'll share it again, no problem. Miles, you need to dump Virgin Media, you need to dump Virgin Internet provider and go with someone else, please. I've tried all the broadbands. Virgin Media is actually particularly the better one. I mean, I've tried BT broadband, it was bad. It had connection the first few months, and then it dropped out. And when you call them, they say, "Oh, we don't, you know, we can't do anything. We're doing maintenance, or the networks are down. Sorry about that." They always give some sort of random excuses. And then I've had other broadbands essentially as well, but Virgin Media worked out the best for a good few years, and then suddenly it's just going downhill. Okay, I will check Telegram. Thanks, no problem, Scott. If it's not there, I'll send a message again on Telegram in the group and pin the message. Now, large US corporations turn to Europe for cheaper euro loans. So why are US corporations, large US corporations, turning towards the EU for loans? Why they're not going, you know, to the US for loans, the US corporations? So large US companies were increasingly tapping into Europe's debt markets at a record pace, attracted by lower borrowing costs on essentially what's happening in Europe. And the companies also took advantage of a chance to diversify their funding sources as uncertainty essentially over President Donald Trump's tariffs triggered big market swings. With the European Central Bank essentially rates at 2.25% and the Fed holding steady at 4.25% to 4.5%, data complied essentially by Bloomberg showed that yield spreads of 0.0118% and 0.2% made borrowing in euros significantly cheaper for US firms. So, because the Fed, Jerome Powell, this does not want to do his job, he's reluctant to do his job in any sort of a way, large US corporations are going across the pond to the EU to borrow money instead of borrowing money from the US because Jerome Powell won't cut the rates. And because the European Central Bank has cut their rates, which is cheaper for them to get loans from Europe than it is to get loans from the US, because Jerome Powell doesn't want to cut the interest rates. Notably, European interest rates were held artificially low, so it made sense for US corporations to essentially borrow where it was cheaper as long as the euro did not appreciate too much against the US dollars. The average yield on index of US corporate bonds was quoted at 5.3%, and the European equivalent was essentially 3.18%, with the difference last month being essentially widest in 3 years. Google's parent company, Alphabet, raised $6.75 billion essentially dollars billion euros the day after the rising essentially $5 billion in the United States. It will pay a coupon of 37.5% for its euro bond maturing in 2037 and 4.5% for its US dollars 2035 maturity. Financial research data confirmed that corporate America was hedging across the Atlantic like never before, as Pfizer, Google, and other large corporations issued record euro debt for over 83 billion euros in 2025, 35% up from essentially compared to 2024, and nearly 14% on overall euro corporate issuance. Anxiety essentially has been caused by the Moody's reports and how the Fed is not reducing the rates in the US. Jerome Powell is essentially affecting the marketplace in the US so much, and people call Trump a child. It's the funny part, because the liberals and the Democrat politicians will come out and say Trump is a child, he's acting like a child and so on, even though Trump is the one that's actually saving America, to be fairly honest. But what about Jerome Powell? I think Jerome Powell is actually the one that's acting like a child and not like an adult, because this man does not want to cut rates no matter what. Where Europe is cutting their rates and American companies are going to Europe to borrow money instead of the US because Jerome Powell won't cut the rates. According to the founders of Tulo Capital Management, Spencer, American companies were going to Europe to raise capital euros because it was apparently more stable, easier, and cheaper to borrow in Frankfurt than it was in New York. You cannot be faulted as a chief financial officer or a treasurer for accessing euros right now. It's an attractive relative cost with low coupons and stable environments versus riskier unknown in the US. The president of International for Bank of America, Bernard, also pointed out that Europe was an incredibly wealthy region, yet much of its capital was exported largely to the US rather than being reinvested efficiently within the EU. He added that while this opportunity still existed, the EU had yet to fully size it down. That's true. The EU has also announced today, on a side note, the EU has announced today that they're actually going to start reinvesting into the EU rather than sending money outside of the EU. It almost seems like the EU is taking a chapter out of Trump's playbook, because before Trump was in power, the EU was all about sending money across different countries, and so did the UK, and so did every other country. But because of Trump, a lot of countries have started investing back in their own countries, and the EU has started investing back into its own continent as well, which is incredible to see. Now, portfolio manager essentially at 24 Asset Management, Gordon, said he preferred to reverse the Yankees to US dollar dominated bonds because he would rather essentially own German bonds than US treasuries. A fixed income portfolio manager at RBC Blue Bay echoed essentially Shannon's sentiments by also claiming that the consistently high treasury yields driven by US debt and deficit essentially meant high borrowing costs for US households and companies. The European Central Bank's essentially deposit rate was currently at 1.75%, lower than the US Federal Reserve's, making borrowing in euros much more cheaper than it would be in US dollars. Companies that did not need to convert their debt into US dollars saved even more. Even those who made the conversion could still find essentially advantages such as lower costs. Investors expect the European Central Bank to cut rates even more, at least 3 more times this year, after lowering them in January to 2.75%. Meanwhile, inflation in the US pushed back expectations of Federal Reserve rate cuts, with traders now predicting just one small reduction by the end of 2025. So, the best part is NBC News, ABC News, CNBC News, Yahoo News, they will all come out and say, look, essentially they will say, the most simplest way, they will say, look, US corporations are moving outside of the US and borrowing money from the Europeans because Trump is ruining America, which the reality of it is, Jerome Powell won't do rate cuts, hence why the American corporations are going to Europe, because the European Central Bank is doing rate cuts. But the news will obviously spin it as, look, Trump is ruining America, and that's why US corporations are going across the pond to borrow euros instead of US dollars. But that's not the reality. It's that Jerome Powell's not doing rate cuts. the European Central Bank is doing rate cuts, which is therefore lower for them to borrow money from Europe than it is from the US. That's the gist of it. Now, because I know for a fact NBC News, Yahoo News, CNBC News, ABC News, they all come out and say Trump is making US corporations borrow money from foreigners. But that's not the truth of it. But, you know, the news is very allergic to telling the truth. Everyone knows that. On the topic of the Fed, Jerome Powell, the Fed, is about to be doing some sort of economic event very soon. I'm guessing he's probably starting to wake up and realize that, this is happening. The Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, is scheduled to attend a significant economic event today, a moment gathering attention essentially from both traditional and cryptocurrency markets due to potential implications. Jerome Powell has essentially been at the helm of the Federal Reserve since 2018, playing a very pivotal role in the monetary policy. His participation in this event underscores the potential regulatory changes affecting the financial landscape, including crypto assets. And his previous remarks have often prompted volatility within crypto market spaces. Investors keep a close eye on major cryptocurrencies and stablecoins, anticipating responses based on Jerome Powell's discussions today. And Jerome Powell also himself stated, "I welcome participants to the second Thomas Launchable Research Conference and highlight the importance of the Fed's strict framework review. More insights can be explored in Jerome Powell's speech on economic impact and regulations. The implications are essentially broad, impacting financial regulations, market volatility, and investor sentiment. Attention is focused on possible announcements affecting the regulations of stablecoins and digital currencies and aimed ongoing Federal Reserve regulatory movements that are happening. Historical trends suggest that Jerome Powell's speeches can prompt shifts in DeFi and crypto trading, and recent regulatory movements and highlights that are happening are possible increased focuses on compliance, urging markets to stay alert on Jerome Powell's insights that are probably going to be coming out tomorrow, and that it's going to be something that's either going to be affecting the crypto space in a positive way or the negative way with whatever Jerome Powell talked about today. We're going to get some updates coming out tomorrow on his maybe behind the closed door speeches he's had as well. But apparently crypto conversations are involved, stablecoin conversations are involved, regulations for cryptocurrencies are involved in whatever he's talking about. Now, Switzerland is what we're going to be talking about next. But before we talk about Switzerland, let's go to the comment section first. Let's see where we're at. And as I said previously, live as usual, live from London. So if you do have a comment or a statement to make, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's see where we're at inside the comment section, and then we go straight into the Swiss news, the Switzerland news. We haven't talked about HOT in a while. Is it still a good asset to look into? HOT, in my opinion, is a great asset. Please, Miles, share that document. Already said that. Okay, we were here. Sorry. BT has now emerged with EE broadband mounts. Okay. How are the tariffs affecting investing in crypto markets? How are the tariffs affecting investing in crypto markets? Well, tariffs cause economic instability. The market becomes quite unstable when tariff wars are happening, because tariffs put pressure on prices, and prices go up. People have less money to invest, which becomes a very uncertain market space, a very volatile market space, and riskier investments tend to be put on the sidelines when unstable market spaces are created. Now, other way around, if traditional market spaces get hit in some sort of a way, then alternative market spaces will go up, and so will gold, because it's seen as essentially a safe haven. Also, other way around, with tariffs causing prices to go higher, a lot of people essentially tend to jump out of riskier assets, and on that matter, it causes the prices to tumble slightly and cause that unstableness. Also, it makes people run towards gold, basically. In any equation, people will run towards gold. But that's how essentially tariffs cause the unstableness inside the market spaces. Tariffs cause unstableness, prices go higher, people have less money to invest, it creates an unstable market space, and people tend to move away from riskier assets and tend to go towards safe havens, which tend to either be the US dollars or essentially tends to be gold as the number one source. Now, But again, tariffs are very, 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours turbulence. After that, it's not really much of a turbulence. Unless there was the China situation, which for some oddly reason, China thought they can win this tariff battle and then realized they can't. And now that pause has started between the US and China because Xi Jinping was put under pressure by his own party, by his own bankers, and by his own real estate, essentially, industry, that he needs to come to some sort of a sit down with Trump. Otherwise, China's economy is just going to collapse. And that's why Xi Jinping decided to give up this whole momentum of we are strong and we don't care and we will go up against Trump no matter what. They realized that going against Trump is a losing battle. The man doesn't give up. It's Trump. Trying to go up against Trump is a losing battle. She's never going to win. The guy, because China thought, they were, the don't care type of person. Trump is really the don't care type of person. He will get his way one way or another. How are the tariffs? So that's how the tariffs is actually affecting crypto market space. Jerome Powell will be gone by the end of the year, Miles. Hopefully, we can always hope for that. UK has made fresh deal with Europe and has made public, Miles, your thoughts? That's true. The UK has made an agreement with Europe on quite a few matters, and one of them essentially just being that people under 30 years old can go to Europe visa-free, and they're calling it the youth experience. But anybody above 30 years old still has to pay for a visa to essentially go to these countries and so on, which, in my opinion, is a very crap deal. I'll be very honest. It's a very pathetic deal to be making with Europe. I don't know why Keir Starmer is, the British Prime Minister is very bad at making business deals for some odd reason. Could be because he's a politician and not a businessman, but that's a very terrible deal to make. I mean, we're paying probably Europe millions to billions of dollars, millions to billions of pounds, with all the doors they said they're going to be opening up. But all they did was create a youth experience for anybody under the age of 30 to go to Europe to have a youth experience visa-free. And we're probably going to end up paying billions of pounds for that. It made no usefulness. This has no usefulness whatsoever for the average British person, other than if you're under the age of 30. If you're under the age of 30 and you want to go and have, and you want to go experience bars and, essentially villages and towns in Europe. Other than that, it's just another way of wasting British taxpaying money, to be fairly honest. Miles, create a coin/token that invests in crypto markets. Your researchability analysis would make the coin/token extremely valuable. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done. Is it possible to create an investment group for crypto investments? Yes, it's possible to create a group for a crypto investment, but it's a gray area, which means you could run into certain hiccups, and those certain hiccups could turn into penalties and fines and even a possible prison sentence if things really go south. So there's a lot of hurdles you would have to jump through, and not being too many gray areas for you to be able to create a crypto investment group. Obviously, when we have a set of rules and regulations, it'll be a lot more easier because then we know, it's no longer a gray area. It's more like fill out this form, apply for this. But for the time being, it's gray areas. So on that basis, it's a lot of hurdle jumping, and there's also a lot of penalties, fines, and even a possible prison sentence. But that does depend on your jurisdictions. So now, Switzerland. Swiss crypto giant Bitcoin has essentially received a regulatory nod in Abu Dhabi. So a Switzerland firm that's heavily involved in blockchain and in Bitcoin has just got an approval from Abu Dhabi. Swiss cryptocurrency financial service provider Bitcoin Suisse has essentially received in principle from the Financial Services Regulatory Authority of Abu Dhabi in global markets, making it its first expansion outside of the European Union, according essentially to Cointelegraph. The company secured this approval through its subsidiary BTCS Middle East Ltd, positioning essentially the firm to provide regulated crypto financial services in one of the Middle East's fastest growing financial centers. The in-principle approval serves as a primary step towards essentially obtaining a full financial service license, which would allow Bitcoin Suisse to offer regulated services, including digital asset trading, crypto securities and derivatives, and offerings and custody solutions in the essentially ADGM And the head of the global expansions and designated senior executive officer of BTCS Middle East, essentially LTD, emphasized that this development reflects the company's strong commitment to maintaining essentially the highest standards of transparency, security, and regulatory essentially compliance. Founded in 2013, Bitcoin Suisse has established itself as a key player in Switzerland and essentially of Switzerland's crypto valley ecosystem, which has been valued at more than $500 billion. The company has built a strong reputation in Switzerland by offering essentially secure and compliant crypto asset services and solutions for both the private essentially individuals and the institutional sector. According to essentially the documents that have been essentially the news and the articles that have been released, Bitcoin Suisse currently holds over $6 billion in digital assets under custody and more than $2.6 billion in institutional staking services, making it one of the largest providers of digital asset custody globally. The company's expansion into Abu Dhabi reflects the growing significance of the United Arab Emirates in global cryptocurrency landscapes. The UAE has emerged as an attractive destination for crypto businesses due to its essentially progressive regulatory framework, and the ADGM has established as a essentially financial free zone, has developed a comprehensive regulatory structure for digital assets under the oversight of the FSRA. The KYC Hub reports that the ADGM's virtual asset framework is globally acknowledged for its comprehensive regulations, making it the largest regulated hub for virtual assets in the MENA region. And Bitcoin Suisse is not alone in its expansion into the Middle East. Several major cryptocurrency firms have recognized the potentials of this region in the global crypto hub. For example, Circle, the issuer of the world's largest, essentially the world's second largest stablecoin, USDC, also received an in-principle approval from FSRA, moving it closer to becoming a regulated money service provider in the UAE. And according to essentially the data that's been released, the stats that's been released, the Stacks Asia DLT Foundation also recently partnered with the ADGM, becoming the first Bitcoin-based organization to establish an official presence in the Middle East. The trend of crypto businesses moving into the Middle East aligns with the larger institutional movements in the region. Retainers reported that Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund, ADQ, also essentially has a massive essentially holding of stocks in terms of Bitcoin ETFs and MSTO stocks and so on, which we're going to talk about later on tonight's live as well. But a massive Bitcoin company in Switzerland has now just essentially expanded itself in the Abu Dhabi, which great to see. Obviously, any sort of blockchain companies expanding their essentially resources, expanding in their market space and so on, incredible. Now, Crypto.com is what we're going to talk about next. I'm getting notifications right now in the chat that Bitcoin has reached $109,000, $110,000, $111,000. Crypto.com JP says, let's go. Now, Crypto.com has secured a strict advantage with key acquisitions in Europe. Crypto.com has recently now made an announcement that it's essentially had an acquisition of all new investments, thereby essentially securing a crucial license to offer derivatives financial products within the European Economic Area. Another essentially company, Crypto.com, expanding the blockchain space. Essentially what Crypto.com has done is an interesting play, which is more of on the lines of connecting blockchain to traditional market spaces, because with this new acquisition from Crypto.com, Crypto.com is about to get access to 27 European countries, essentially with full licensing. So the Markets and Financial Instruments Directives, the MIFID license held by all new investments and granted by essentially the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission, will enable Crypto.com to introduce derivative services to all, essentially in all 27 European member states, as well as Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. Crypto.com has just opened the doors for clientele inside the retail section and the institutional section to be entering the crypto spaces. Incredible to see. This strict acquisition significantly bolsters Crypto.com's presence in Europe. Earlier this year, the company has secured their markets and essentially MiCA licensing, allowing it to offer crypto custody services and exchange services essentially across the European Economic Area. Although essentially financial specifics of this acquisition remain undisclosed, it marks an essential essentially step for Crypto.com in terms of their expansion that's happening. The appetite for the derivatives products among cryptocurrency exchanges has grown, offering new revenue opportunities. And by acquiring MIFD licenses, Crypto.com positions itself alongside essentially European market players like Gemini and Kraken, who have also expanded their derivatives offerings via similar acquisitions. Interest in derivatives is not unique to Crypto.com, as it demonstrated by Coinbase's acquisition of options platform for $2.9 billion to essentially strengthen its position in the US derivatives market spaces and other companies by employing essentially similar strategies to reinforce their market stance in both Europe and the US. The backdrop to Crypto.com's European initiative involves an arena of increasing essential regulatory requirements, and platforms aspiring to operate in the European economy area are eager to essentially obtain official sanctions such as licensing to ensure regulatory compliance and access to broader customer bases. Again, incredible to see, honestly, for Crypto.com opening its doors to 27 countries fully licensed. 27 EU members will now be able to essentially have full access to Crypto.com. Retail section and institutional section both can have access to Crypto.com through this acquisition they just made. Incredible. Now, Russia has decided to legalize crypto for one particular reason. Russia moves to legalize crypto because they want to be able to seize it in criminal cases. So Russia decided that if they want to go after essentially criminals that are involved in the crypto sector, then they have to legalize crypto and put it down as an asset, and therefore then they can go after these types of criminals and seize their cryptocurrencies. So because they want to seize it, they had to legalize it. The move comes as the country modernizes its legal tools to combat financial essentially crimes involving cryptocurrencies. The Deputy essentially Justice Minister, Vadim, announced that the bill, drawing a national essentially legal form, focused on emerging tech risk. Under essentially the draft law, cryptocurrencies will be classified as property, giving the courts and investigators the legal backing to confiscate them if it's a crime. Officers could seize hardware wallets, storage devices, and other tools that provide access to digital assets. Courts may also issue orders to freeze transactions during investigations. Frederick also said seizure methods would essentially vary depending on the type and storage methods of crypto assets involved. The Ministry essentially of Justice wants to eliminate legal blind spots that hinder police from taking action against criminals using crypto. Frederick also emphasized that this law would give investigators a more effective way to manage and secure digital cryptocurrencies involved in illegal activities. Russia has stepped up its regulatory focus on digital assets in recent years, and this proposal is just one of the broader pushes to tighten control over crypto of role of money in terms of money laundering, fraud, and illicit financing. If passed, the bill could shift how Russian courts and investigators handle cryptocurrencies and further essentially signal state-backed efforts to regulate the digital asset economy. So, an interesting play from Russia. Typically, it's countries banning cryptocurrencies because they just see that was the easier option, and then countries decided to legalize cryptocurrencies because they can have better control over it. And same goes with Russia. Russia realized that if they want to confiscate cryptocurrencies, they might as well legalize them. It's an interesting way to come to the conclusion of legalizing cryptocurrencies, because now they can confiscate them. Now, moving on from the Russian news to banks. But before we talk about banks, let's move to the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions or comments to make, put down to the comment section. Now, let's go to the comment section first. That's what's happening there. All I can see inside the comment section right now is BTC 109, BTC 110,000, BTC 111,000. Stormy, hi Miles, CMF, good to see you. Well, Stormy, how you doing? Alt season begins. Let's go, Ian. What do you think about BTC bull? What do I think about the BTC, the bull run that's happening right now, the BTC bull that's happening? It's off the back of essentially the regulatory clarity that's coming through. It's also off the back of the institutional inflows that are happening into ETFs, but it's mostly to do with the regulations that are happening right now in the US, where one, essentially in terms of Texas getting very close to that bill, which might be a very minor one in essentially Bitcoin's footsteps. But the bigger one essentially is the approval rate Bitcoin is getting right now in the US, and how close it is to a full regulations happening in the US. So off the back of that, and off the back of essentially the amount of institutional inflows that have been happening in the Bitcoin ETFs, because of the excitement of what's about to happen next, is why Bitcoin is climbing up. But as I said previously, the run we're going to be having is a very essentially a very institutional run is what we're going to be having. The money that's flowing into Bitcoin right now isn't technically retail money, and it's not retail money that's been technically exited from altcoins to feed into Bitcoin. The money that's entering Bitcoin right now are the ETF holders expanding their positions, or it's essentially new money that's entering the blockchain sphere in terms of new investments coming into the Bitcoin ETFs, new investments going towards MSTR, MicroStrategy, keep on buying Bitcoin. I mean, the details have come out that the Saudi bank is holding a tremendous amount of essentially MSTR stocks, or the Saudi bank essentially is holding tremendous amount of Bitcoin ETFs and so on. So there is a lot of money coming essentially, and it's coming because of on the back of the excitement of the US's announcements, the regulations that are about to be happening, the stablecoin bill that's about to be passed. So that excitement is what's happening right now. And yeah, it's not sorry about that. A lot of people are saying it's the retail money that's completely exiting. Essentially, it's the altcoin money that's exiting and going straight into Bitcoin. It's not really that. It's because the institutions weren't technically in that section anyway. I mean, the client base of who buys BlackRock's ETF, or 21 shares ETF for Bitcoin, Grayscale's Bitcoin ETF, or any of these Bitcoin ETFs in the US, they are the ones that are putting the money into Bitcoin right now. It's not they're selling their altcoins, because they never had any altcoins. All they had was Bitcoin ETFs in the first place. So just keep that in mind as well, because I know a lot of people are right now, again, there's always misinformation inside the crypto space, and it could just be by accident. But the misinformation is that it's altcoin money that's been emptied out straight into Bitcoin, and that's a big fat lie. Actually, the truth of the matter is that it's actually institutional money that's entering into Bitcoin from essentially family offices mostly as well, and also it's the Bitcoin ETF holders that are expanding their holdings. They never had altcoins to start with. They only had Bitcoin ETFs. The client base that buy Bitcoin ETFs. So just keep that in mind. Now, BTC reserves, equities, money is coming into BTC. And maybe something to do with Trump's tweet about bringing back essentially Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Yeah, there's a lot of factors in play, but it's the excitement that's happening right now. We're getting close to that legislations. We're getting close to a lot of things. It's the regulation run we're about to be having. Now, banks is what we're going to talk about next. Banks lobbying is essentially the bank lobbying is panicking right now. So while we're getting close to a regulation for stablecoins, the Genius Act, while there's more tension on Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, stablecoins, ETFs, and so on and so on, some banks are starting to show their panicking situations, because banks make a lot of money from printing, let's just say, and they can't do that with stablecoins. And here's the thing. Stablecoin staking is where banks are mostly afraid of. So let me just, share it to you like this. America's powerful banking lobby is panicking over the potential of stablecoins to disrupt their traditional business model, particularly when it comes to yield-bearing stablecoins. According to an Austin Campbell, a New York University professor and the founder of Zero Knowledge Consulting, the social media post essentially that begins with "the empire lobbies back." Campbell claimed that the banking industry is especially alarmed by the potential for stablecoins to offer interest or rewards to holders. He pointed to his message aimed at the Democratic lawmakers. Campbell wrote that banks want you to protect the cartel so they can keep screwing essentially their voters. Essentially, that Democrats are the ones protecting the bank cartels, because the bank makes a lot of money and they can't do that in a crypto world. About 3 years ago, I said this on this live, when I used to do this live a long time ago on TikTok only, about 3 years ago. And I said that essentially the banks, are going to. The banks are the ones that are going to be having the most difficult time because they won't be able to do their fractional reserves. They won't be able to make money on using your money for investments because they can't do that on CBDCs. They won't be able to do that on stable coins. So that's why banks will suddenly become obsolete. Otherwise, they would have to essentially turn themselves into fintech companies. For any bank to survive in a digital world, they would have to turn themselves into some sort of fintech companies because that's the only way they're going to survive. And the reason why you've always seen Democratic politicians reject anything to do with crypto, it's because they were protecting the banks. That the banks that didn't want to give up their cartel positions. That's why you've always seen Republicans vote in favor of cryptocurrencies, and you've always seen Democrats being the ones to vote against cryptocurrencies. The majority of Democrats always vote against cryptocurrencies. The majority of Republicans always vote in favor of cryptocurrencies because the Democrats have always been protecting the banks. So he went on to essentially explain how fractional reserves and banking enables banks to maximize their profits while offering depositories minimal interest. And the banking lobby says that if stablecoins pay interest or any other type of monetary rewards, banks will be harmed because then people will see the more we go, and especially how close we are getting to stablecoin regulations, the Genius Act. Once the Genius Act is passed and we have a stablecoin regulation inside the United States, how many people do you think over time will continue keeping their money in their bank? Not that many over time, because more people will realize that if they take their money out of the bank and put it into a stable coin, they can actually earn on their stable coin, which will cause a bank collapse. This is naked pandering, essentially, for cartel protection. He said while urging the opposition parties to avoid screwing its voters with supporting any type of bank-led ban on stablecoin interest payments. They're saying if anybody's going to vote against a stablecoin bill, it's going to be Democrats. And you want to take a guess who is the biggest vocal person on this planet when it comes to regulating cryptocurrencies or even regulating stablecoins? Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator Elizabeth Warren is the biggest person, essentially the most negative person against stablecoins. Who do you think is backing Senator Elizabeth Warren? So this naked pandering for cartel protections, he said, while urging the opposition party to avoid screwing its voters with supporting any type of bank-led, essentially, payments. Campo has long advocated for sensible stablecoin legislations inside the United States, warning a congressional, essentially, subcommittee in April 2023 that failing to enact such laws would push issuers overseas. Campo's essentially scathing assessment of traditional banking industries comes aimed at the wave of stablecoin issuers launching yield-bearing tokens. As reported by Cointelegraph, the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission (SEC) in February approved the first yield-bearing stablecoins and securities by Figure Markets. At the time of its launch, the new essentially YLDS token offered a 3.85% yield. It's unacceptable to not be receiving at least the risk-free rate for holding stablecoins, Sam, the CEO of Spark Protocol developer Phoenix Labs, told Bloomberg. Aside from Bitcoin, stablecoins have arguably become the most impactful, useful, essentially case for blockchain technology, with Coinbase Canada CEO Lucas also telling Cointelegraph that global stablecoin volumes are nearly 3 times of those of credit card giants like Visa. And I can see that G has also put a comment and said Genius Act says no API with stablecoins. It doesn't matter that the essentially Stablecoin Act, the Genius Act, has said no APY. It's because the SEC has already approved essentially stablecoin staking. They said it technically doesn't fall under securities and so on, and they've already approved it once. So Genius Act gets passed, stablecoins approved. SEC approves the other side for essentially the yield-bearing situation. Now, sovereign wealth funds, as I was saying, regarding good question, because a lot of people might, read that essentially Genius Act and go, well, the API might not be there because the SEC has approved the API already. Now, a while ago, they approved it, the first one. Sovereign wealth funds increase Bitcoin holdings significantly. So as I was saying beforehand, regarding essentially what money is actually entering into Bitcoin, is it altcoins being sold off and fed into essentially Bitcoin? Technically, no. It's actually new investments, or the investments that were already in Bitcoin in terms of Bitcoin ETFs that were just expanding their footprint is what's going on. But I know a lot of people on social media are saying altcoins are being sold off and fed into Bitcoin. Forget about that old routine, because the old routine doesn't exist anymore. Now we have institutions, we have ETFs, we have regulations, we have corporations, we have ETPs, we have so many things that we never had before. So the old routines don't apply whatsoever. And what's actually happening is, I mean, one example is this: sovereign wealth funds increase Bitcoin holdings significantly. Growing sovereign wealth fund investments in Bitcoin underscores a pivotal trend in global finance, with institutional confidence growing and potential market shifts looming worldwide. The Mamdullah, essentially investment company, has disclosed a substantial investment in BlackRock's iShare Bitcoin Trust, Abu Dhabi's sovereign fund, with a stake now at $408.5 million, demonstrates the strict shift in Bitcoin acquisitions. The significant involvement of Nourish Bank's investment management and Bhutan's BTC Ventures, a growing trend among sovereign wealth entities. Their interest in green energy mining and ETF marks a strict departure from traditional investments. Increased investments by sovereign wealth funds have positively affected Bitcoin, contributing to the substantial capital inflows into Bitcoin ETFs. Institutional investors are gradually warming up to essentially Bitcoin, reinforcing its market presence and legitimacy. America is going to lead the digital revolution, said Eric Trump during a notable speech in the UAE, reflecting bullish sentiments towards Bitcoin and the crypto markets. With the sovereign wealth funds shifting towards direct Bitcoin investments through ETFs, policy changes could arise. Historical trends indicate that these institutional moves may stabilize markets and bolster international crypto acceptance. So it's not altcoins that are being sold off and fed into Bitcoin, which is what the social media influencers are saying right now. They're probably just saying it because they're misled, by themselves as well. And the reality of it is actually the ETF holders expanding their footprint is what's actually happening. It's not altcoins being sold off. It's the footprint that's been happening. Not saying no altcoins are being sold off. Some might be selling off, but the majority of the investments coming in right now is not from altcoins. It's actually from new investments and the current holders who are just expanding their footprint in their ETFs. Now, New York is what we're going to talk about next. Apparently, they're thinking that you can soon be able to pay your taxes in New York using cryptocurrencies. According to the City Hall sources, Eric Adams, the Crypto Advisory Council, are signaling New York's bold step towards digital growth. Mayor Eric Adams announced the new council during the city's first crypto digital asset summit, which we talked about yesterday. He essentially said, he announced the first ever crypto New York summit. He said the council will focus on creating strong strategies that will support financial technology and bring new jobs and attract long-term investments in the city. Mayor Adams made it clear that this plan will not follow in the short-term trends, and Eric Adams essentially at the Crypto Advisory Council are meant to be a serious group to study and the use case of new technologies like blockchain, cryptocurrencies to improve the city's future. Officials believe that the council will suggest rules that can bring digital finance into the city services, and this might also include essentially using blockchain to protect important records and allow people to pay city fees with cryptocurrencies. Soon, you're going to be able to pay your fees using cryptocurrencies in New York. Not only that, but apparently, documentation in New York is going to be on the blockchain also very soon. New York City's Chief Technology Officer, Matthews, said that blockchain is a tool that can help the government to work better. He explained how blockchain could be used to keep important documents like birth and death certificates safe and private. Eric Adams and the Crypto Advisory Council have a task force looking at how new technologies like blockchain can be used responsibly, particularly in government services. Their main aim is to make sure that these systems keep the information safe and private, while also making sure it's easy for people to access it when they need it. People in tech industry supported the announcement and said that the clear rules will be needed essentially for a long time. Morgan Illes, a blockchain expert from Manhattan, said that Adams is creating something strong and stable. And Eric Adams, the Crypto Council Advisory, are focused on creating strong and smart systems that are not just making news, but actually, essentially leading New York to that blockchain venture. Startup founders too share their thoughts. Amanda Lee, who runs a crypto essentially payment company in the Bronx, said that she liked the plan that this council might help to connect council, city officials, and tech creators who are building new tools. The summit also had a private group session where experts shared ideas for their trial essentially projects and new rules. These suggestions will now be reviewed by Eric Adams and the Crypto Advisory Council for official consideration. One of the main goals of the mayor is to essentially make services easier to access. Fraser also said the city is looking into test programs where people could essentially pay their taxes and fees with cryptocurrencies. This might really help essentially the nearly 1 million New Yorkers who don't have bank accounts. Eric Adams also and the Crypto Advisory Council will be looking into how these ideas can work, including the legal and technical issues that need to be solved. Mayor Adams wants to create a financial system that works for everyone, not just for people who are already inside the tech world. Even though the City Hall supports these ideas, they need help from Albany, the state government essentially. Some state lawmakers have suggested bills that would make it easier to use cryptocurrencies, like allowing people to pay for state services with help of digital money. But most of these bills essentially have not been approved yet. Adams is not giving up. He said that we are not just trying to essentially try new things, but we are making sure that we're going to keep up and stay strong. According to him, if New York doesn't act now, it will fall behind others. He also praised people inside the crypto world by saying you were treated like criminals, but you still kept going. Now your hard work is helping to build the city's future. Eric Adams and Crypto Advisory Council will play a very important role and turning that determination into real actions that help the city to grow or protecting people's interests. Eric Adams and the Crypto Advisory Council are seriously essentially trying to bring blockchain and digital finance to the city government by focusing on essentially protecting days and including more people in finance and improving public services. And Mayor Adams is helping New York City to become a leader in fintech essentially through there are unclear rules. This council shows a new ways of using technology to improve the city. So not only is Texas essentially going to become the first one to have this crypto stockpile and actually put money inside of it, but New York seems to be the first American state to essentially be approving blockchain, using blockchain for documentations, and even accepting essentially cryptocurrency payments for paying fees and even taxes possibly. So New York is really taking steps of becoming some sort of a crypto hub. It's great to see that. Now, Guatemala, the largest bank, adds stablecoin remittances in tech in-app. In a regional first, SucaPay's crypto-native payment infrastructure is now powering a cross-border remittances inside Banco Industrial mobile app Ziggy. So Guatemala's largest bank has just added stablecoin remittances in its tech app. Interesting timing. As America is about to be passing stablecoin regulations, Hong Kong passes it before America regarding stablecoin regulations, and Guatemala is about to be passing essentially. Guatemala's added stablecoins to its largest bank. At the same time, Ripple is trying to buy out Circle to become the largest holder essentially of stablecoins. A lot of things are happening essentially inside the blockchain world, so marking a significant shift in how Latin American banks adopt blockchain technology. The integration allows Guatemalan users to receive US-based transfers in under 20 seconds via their existing banking app for a flat fee of 99 cents, according to a note shared essentially with the news. Users can now initiate payments with a debit card, Apple Pay, or cash through retail partners like essentially Walmart or CVS. And the system works using phone numbers, eliminating the need for IBANs, crypto wallets, or conversions. This isn't a feature, it's a financial infrastructure upgrade, said essentially the CEO of SucaPay. We're powering real-world payments that actually work for real people, banked or unbanked. Remittances are essentially a vital lifeline for Latin America, with Guatemala alone receiving over $21 billion annually. Traditional systems are often costly and slow. SucaPay essentially addresses these inefficiencies by embedding stablecoins-based transfers directly into essentially regulated banking environments and invisible to the users but transformative under the hood. Banco Industrial chooses to integrate Suku essentially rather than build its own cross-border infrastructure. And with Suku's essentially infrastructure embedded directly into Ziggy, we're not just improving remittances, we're also setting a new standard, said essentially Michelle, the head of Striga Alliance at the Banco essentially Industrial. This partnership may serve as a model for banks across the region looking to modernize without building from scratch or forcing customers to engage directly with crypto technology. Honestly, incredible to see regarding essentially what's happening inside the blockchain, especially the stablecoin sector is right now taking off from every angle. What's happening right now? Moving on from Guatemala, essentially also adding stablecoin services, the largest bank, Guatemala, $20.1 billion annually enters essentially Guatemala, which is incredible as well. But largest bank in Guatemala, stablecoin approval is added. Hong Kong approves stablecoins. America is about to be approving stablecoins. Ripple's about to be buying Circle out, becoming the number one holder of stablecoins in the US. What we're going to be talking about next is CBDCs. So moving off essentially stablecoins, going into CBDCs, a topic that hasn't been discussed a while inside the crypto sector. But there are CBDCs still happening behind the sidelines. 98% of essentially centralized banks around the world are still in CBDCs. That's according to the Bank of International Settlements and the International Monetary Fund and the Atlantic. Now, CBDC. South Korean banks face crucial digital currency talks. South Korean banks, even though, South Korea is going for a presidential election right now, which all three candidates are pro-crypto, which we talked about in the past. But South Korean banks are going to be having crucial talks right now regarding CBDCs. The world of finance is rapidly evolving, and central banks are at the forefront of exploring new digital frontiers. A recent announcement, essentially from outlets from essentially South Korea, indicates a significant step in this journey for South Korea. Bank of Korea's governor, Ri Chang-young, is scheduled to hold important discussions regarding central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, with the head of 6 major South Korean banks. This meeting is planned essentially for May 26, signifies the increasing seriousness with which South Korea's financial authorities are approaching digital assets and their potential integration into existing financial systems. The agenda includes key global initiatives and domestic considerations, setting the stage for potential future developments in the country's financial infrastructure. The discussions led by the Bank of Korea's governor will reportedly cover 2 main areas: the Bank for International Settlements, Project Argo, and domestic developments related to stablecoins. So, South Korean banks in about 4 days are going to be discussing stablecoins and CBDCs. Every country seems like they're shifting towards, essentially the stablecoin regulation, because America is about to pass their stablecoin regulation. So other countries are deciding to do it first. And they're also going to be discussing CBDCs. So here it is. Let's just break it down at the bullet points. The Bank of International Settlements Project Argo, this collaborative initiative involving multiple central banks and private financial institutions, its core focus is exploring how tokenized commercial banks deposits and wholesale CBDCs could function together on a unified platform. The goal is to potentially improve the efficiency, speed, and transparency of cross-border payments and settlements. Discussing this project indicates South Korea is essentially interested in international standards and potential essential cross-border applications of digital currencies. Domestic stablecoin developments. Stablecoins or cryptocurrencies essentially designed to maintain a store of value, typically pegged to essentially traditional currencies like the Korean won or the US dollars, or to commodities, and their increasing use of potential risk have drawn attention to regulators worldwide. And the Bank of Korea is likely examining how stablecoins are currently used within South Korea, potentially regulatory frameworks, and their interactions essentially with or impact on potential future CBDCs. Bringing these topics to the forefront in the meeting essentially with major bank heads underscores the complexities and the interconnectedness of the essential digital asset landscape that financial institutions must navigate. The Bank of Korea has actively been researching CBDCs for several years. They have conducted simulation tests and pilot programs to explore the technical and legal feasibilities of issuing digital won. Engaging with major banks is a natural step in the undergoing essentially particularly implementations of such systems, and the country's essentially advanced technological infrastructure makes it a prime candidate for exploring essentially digital currencies and applications. And furthermore, South Korea has a dynamic cryptocurrency essentially market, which includes the use of stablecoins, regulators that are keen to ensure the growth of these private digital assets that does not pose risk to financial stability or consumer protection. And discussions essentially around these domestic stablecoin developments are likely involving exploring potential regulatory approaches to manage these risks effectively. In the most simplest way to put it, South Korea in about 4 days is about to be having a very, very important meeting talking about essentially CBDCs and stablecoins. They're going to decide essentially what regulations they're going to be passing forward and how they're going to be competing in this very competitive market space where a lot of countries are now looking into adding stablecoins because the US is about to approve theirs. Now, talking about CBDC, Ripple. Ripple is about to be having an event, Apex 2025. Meet the visionaries redefining blockchain and finance. The countdown is on for Apex 2025, the world's premier XRP Ledger Community Summit, which is going to be happening. And this year, the speaker lineup is more dynamic and diverse than ever before. Held for the first time in Singapore, Apex 2025 brings together essentially thought leaders, developers, innovators, and institutions from around the world for 3 days of breakthrough insights, global collaborations, and powerful community energies. Ripple is going to have over 80 speakers spanning blockchain pioneers, academic researchers, Web3 founders, and financial leaders are going to be attending the XRP Ledger event in Singapore. Apex 2025 is set to be a landmark event of institutional DeFi, tokenization, stablecoin, and XRP Ledger innovation. XRP Ledger is purpose-built for finance, and Apex 2025 sets the stage for how that mission is evolving. So get ready to hear directly from leaders who are shaping the future of blockchain infrastructure and finance. Brad, CEO of Ripple, and Monica Long, president, will take the main stage to explore the acceleration of institutional adoption that's happening on the XRP Ledger, from stablecoins and tokenized real-world assets to Apex essentially regulatory edge. David Schwartz, Ripple CTO, also joins Jazzy Cooper, head of products, Ripple X, to deep dive into how the XRP Ledger's core features are enabling permission, essentially DeFi programmability and institutional liquidity. Ian, the chief strategy officer at Ondo Finance, is sitting down with Monica Long to discuss tokenized treasuries, compliant yield products, and why institutions are migrating essentially open to financial infrastructure. One of the most highly anticipated sessions of the week, introducing the new XRP Ledger Foundation, will bring together leaders from Ripple, XRP Ledger Labs, XRP Ledger Commons, and XAO essentially DAO to detail essentially the foundation's evolution, its new governance models, and how it will empower developers and community members to contribute to the XRP Ledger's long-term growth. Joining the discussions are essentially Matt, the founder, XRP Ledger Foundation, David, founder, XRP Ledger Commons, essentially Fabio, CEO, XAO DAO, Robert, COO of XRP Ledger Labs, and host Luke Judges, partner, essentially director of Ripple, will share insights into the foundation's strategy, structure, and vision for the future. 3 days of learning, networking, building, and a lot of community celebration. For the first time, Apex lands in Asia, and Singapore will serve as a vibrant backdrop for this landmark global gathering as APEC continues to lead the charge in essentially Web3 adoption. There is no better time or place to join the XRP Ledger developers, enterprise leaders, investors, and blockchain pioneers for an unforgettable essentially summit with more than 80 speakers, key announcements, hands-on workshops, and access to the latest innovations in stablecoins, tokenized assets, DeFi, and compliance tooling. Apex 2025 will deliver the connections and the insights to shape the next wave of blockchain-powered finance, where you're curious, essentially whether you're curious about RLUSD and enterprise payments, or exploring the XRP Ledger's EVM essentially sidechain, or building new features like multi-purpose tokens and permission domains. This is the community, platform, and moment to take your step. So, massive Ripple event is about to be happening in Singapore. 80 speakers are going to be at the event. Ripple is going to discuss its future of finance in terms of DeFi, institutional finance, tokenization, a lot of things to do with institutions. People that are going to be attending it, well, retail section, obviously. Institutions are going to be attending it. Developers are going to be attending it. Leaders are going to, the list just goes on of a lot of things are going to be happening, most simplest way to put it. So, massive Ripple event is about to be happening in Singapore, and it's all about finance. It's all about Ripple's next steps inside the market space. The amount of institutions are going to be attending it, it's going to be quite ridiculous. So, that's also happening. Also, we have reached the endings of tonight's live. So that was the last news on tonight's live to go through, which was a massive Ripple event, a massive financial Ripple event, where they're going to tell you what the next step is going to be. So on tonight's live, if you joined in quite late, this was the CMF Live. My name is Miles. This was episode 312 of the CMF Live. And on tonight's live, we talked about essentially a massive Ripple event that's about to be happening in Singapore. We talked about essentially CBDCs from South Korea on tonight's live. We also went through news regarding Guatemala's largest bank approving essentially stable coins. We talked about on tonight's live also regarding Mayor Adams making New York the hub for cryptocurrencies, and maybe cryptocurrencies can be used to pay fees or taxes in New York, and even blockchain technology going to be used for documentations in New York. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding sovereign wealth funds that are entering essentially into Bitcoin holdings. It's not really altcoins that are being sold off to feed into Bitcoin. It's actually sovereign wealth funds. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding bank lobbyists panicking slightly. We talked about tonight's live also regarding Russia legalizing cryptocurrencies. We went through news regarding Crypto.com expanding its footprint to 27 European countries. We talked about also on tonight's live regarding Switzerland, a Swiss company expanding into Abu Dhabi, regarding their Bitcoin Foundation. We talked about the Fed Jerome Powell chairman, who is going to be having such a event very soon, so we might get some sort of information from him. We talked about regarding how American companies are going to Europe to borrow money because Jerome Powell won't do interest rate cuts, but the European Central Bank has. We also went through news regarding essentially Hong Kong passing a stablecoin bill and some other bills for cryptocurrencies, a lot more faster rate than the US has, but even the US is not that far off. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding Texas being the first American state, not only to get to a stage to pass a crypto, essentially regulate a crypto stockpile, but also put money inside of it. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding Bitcoin's dominance and where is the money coming from, what's the next steps inside the market space. So those are all the topics we talked about on tonight's live. And this was episode 312 of the CMF Live. It stands for Crypto Mouse Family. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. London time. And also, if you like this live, thank you so much. For everyone that liked this live, retweeted this live, or even followed or subscribed during this live, thank you so much as well. And during this live, Monday to Friday, I also talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations. So if you want to know any of those news topics, tune in Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. London time. Tune in Monday to Friday to know about any of those topics regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Also, once again, thank you so much to honestly everybody that retweeted this live, liked this live, put hashtags inside the comment section. And if you watch us on YouTube, thank you so much to everyone that liked the live as well. If you haven't done that, CMF members, take 5 seconds to like the live. And also, if you followed me or subscribed to me during this live, welcome to the CMF family. Now, before I do go, obviously, let's go into the comment section first, just in case I don't miss anyone's questions or comments or statements. British citizen can travel to EU and areas without a visa for short stays of 90 days within a... Yes, that's true, George. Yes, that's facts. Thank you. That's good, no problem. Evening Miles and Crypto Peeps, hope all as well. Good to see you, Semper. Night Miles and CMF. Alex, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Night Miles and CMF. Pablo, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles, and all the CMF. Thank you for a great live and news. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Great show. Take care, Miles. And CMF. Ray, let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good show. Great information, as usual. Let's go, Curtis. See you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Thanks, Legend. Night and day, CMF. Each day, we are one step closer. We are facts. Shelly, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Thank you, Miles, and good nights. Thank you, Miles and CMF. Good night, and see you tomorrow. Mike, see you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Darn it, I missed it. I'll have to watch the stream. He did miss it just by a bit. Good night, Miles. Khalid, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Semper, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Good night, all. Stormy, let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Addy, good night, Miles. And thanks for another great live. As normal, see you tomorrow, mate. Addy, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Peg, thanks. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Thanks for facts on a great live. See you tomorrow. Free forever. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Jason, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Also, Ian, thank you so much for the £20 donation today as well. It's going straight to the CMF phone. Absolutely amazing. Thanks so much for £20 donation. Now, once again, honestly, thank you so much to everybody that tunes in Monday to Friday from the CMF into this live. This was episode 312 of the CMF Live. Like, comment, share, retweet. If you already haven't, follow and subscribe if you also haven't. You're watching this for the first time ever. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. CMF, see everybody tomorrow.